why don't we get started? Today's topic is really an exciting one and very compelling for what's going on in the world today. Um, we have Jennifer Openshaw and who chairs the Girls with Impact. She'll be introduced by Sarina Huang and a fellow MBA alum. And before I introduce her, we're just going to make a couple of announcements of what we have coming up. And I'm Deborah McConkey, and I'm chair of programming committee and also on the board. So we encourage all of you people attending these events and any of you that want to get involved. In fact, we have a programming committee meeting right after this meeting. So we have a number of great events kicking off the fall. In addition to today's, we've got one on estate planning tomorrow. We are doing another one on a retail luxury and consumer executive series on the 18th. Our founder series, How She Built It, that's really kicking off on the 24th. And Spotlight series, Women on Boards. We have a great one on poker and how that is important, risk-taking in the C-suite. And then investing in women is one that we are doing in conjunction with the London School of Business and the HBS Kennedy School. So we're excited about that. And Global Coffee Day is coming up. You're going to be getting, in fact, you've already gotten some invitations to register for that, in addition to some great local events and some new roundtables. So keep reading your newsletters. And now we will get started on today's events. So first, I'm going to introduce Sarina. Sarina Huang is the COO of Corporate Affairs at Citadel, and she helps drive the firm's global communications, marketing, and employee engagement efforts. So that's quite a big charge. She's helped scale high-performing teams responsible for shaping the firm's internal and external narratives and advancing a culture of excellence. So before Citadel, she worked as a consultant at Bain & Company and also on commercial technology strategy at AIG. So she has a BA in economics from Princeton and an MBA from Harvard Business School. So welcome, Sarina, and thank you so much for introducing us to Jennifer.
Of course. Thank you so much, Deborah. And hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. Welcome to today's conversation with the one and only Jennifer Openshaw. So as Deborah mentioned, I currently work at Citadel, where I've had the opportunity to work on a number of initiatives that advance women in this still very male-dominated industry. And what I found is that the process of empowering women in the workplace doesn't begin in the workplace. That process really begins so much earlier when we equip girls with the mindset and the skills to be business leaders. So it was through Citadel that I first met Jen and her incredible organization, Girls with Impact. Jen is a true force of nature. She's a financial industry leader, an entrepreneur, an author. You'll hear a lot more about this in today's talk. But most importantly, she's a passionate advocate for empowering women. She started out as a motel maid at age 14 and went from there to lead 5 organizations, author 3 books, and advise Fortune 500 companies. She's been such a fixture in the media, from appearances on Oprah and Dr. Phil to being a money expert for CBS TV, and so much more. She brings experience from all over Wall Street, Silicon Valley, the nonprofit sector, and beyond. So today she's here to share insights shaped by a lifetime of breaking barriers and building futures. Before we dive in, I just want to quickly note for today's session, we'll start off with a moderated conversation with Jen, and then open it up for Q&A at the end. We'll just kind of let everybody chime in. But in the meantime, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, or if you'd like to get in touch or have any other thoughts or ideas, just please don't hesitate to add that to the chat. We'd love to kind of make this a two-way conversation. So Jen, thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful to
Oh,
have you.
so great to be here. Thank you. I mean, what a great group.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. I mean, your story is just the most inspiring thing. You grew up in California. You were raised by a single mom who worked two jobs as a waitress to make ends meet. Your first job was cleaning a motel, and then you were taking care of your siblings the whole way through. So talk to us about what your mindset was back then, and how did this upbringing shape your vision for your life and your ambitions?
Well, I think we're all shaped by our family and our parents, right? And our surroundings. But my mom was single when I was 5 years old. She did not have a formal education. So she ended up waitressing two full-time jobs to support me and my two younger brothers. And, when I was about 6, 7, 8 years old, I would watch her like struggle to literally pay the phone bill. And it had a huge impression, obviously. But I had this epiphany when I was about 13 years old, after school, riding my navy blue Schwinn bike down the middle of the street. And like literally, it was just this sort of vision thing as I was looking out up above at the sky. And I thought, I do not want to find myself in my mom's position. I sort of envisioned myself kind of having a larger impact leading people, but I had the wrong impression that it was going to be all up to me to do it. That in order for me to build financial security, like no one was going to be there because I think nobody was there for my mom, and ended up putting myself through school. You know, had this sort of I think tenacity, grit, if you will, that if there's a will, there's a way, and really sort of paid attention to the people around me in my various internships and those sorts of things to figure out how to kind of climb up and ahead of where my mom was with us.
That's amazing. And you just set your sights on, you knew you wanted to achieve financial independence. But interestingly enough, you didn't plan to work in financial services the whole way through, right? You started actually in politics at the California State Treasurer's Office. You ran communications for a gubernatorial campaign. So, like, how was that experience? And how did you go, I guess, from politics to finance?
Well, you never see older people in politics for the most part. I was about what 23, 24 years old. It was a phenomenal experience and a great learning for a couple reasons. I found myself in the California State Treasurer's Office with Kathleen Brown, who, for those of you who don't know, her father was a two-time governor, her brother a two-time governor, Jerry Brown. And I was in the middle of major issues from like financial crises to college savings bonds to the Lehman Brothers crises, so much going on, and pension investments. And I thought, I'm not sure that I want to pursue what I thought was my original interest, which when I was 15 years old, I thought I wanted to be the next Barbara Walters. When I was in the treasurer's office and I was around so much substance, I thought, I really have it all wrong. Like this office, something like this is controlling the message rather than me thinking I wanted to be a megaphone for other people's messages. And that was sort of the big aha. And I thought, in order for me to do that, I probably should go to business school. And the other thing that I saw just working from a campaign that I think are things that I really pull from today, and everything that I do is, when we're trying to make something happen, small, big, in the workplace, outside the workplace, thinking about something like a campaign is very effective. And I actually, more than ever right now, and we'll get to it, I'm really thinking about GWI as a campaign because it's so timely and so many people, particularly HBS graduates, care about why are not women still at the top? Why is there not a female president? Why are we not at the top running companies? And so back to the treasurer's office, I saw the various levers from the donors to the media impact, right, to volunteers out in the community. So that was really helpful. And also, a small example too, I was pretty young at the time, but really taking the leap to try new things. So the digital, I don't even think the internet was fully into it. We were barely on email, but I remember we were doing a campaign press conference, and I did a morphed the old governor into Kathleen, the new governor, and sort of a nice reaction for it, but really just an example of trying new things, not being afraid to be creative, because that can really engage people around you. And more than ever today, I think that visual aspect is just so important.
Right. Um,
So much to
thank
talk about in the treasurer's office.
Yeah, and it sounds like it kind of gave you this like bird's eye view of all the different moving parties, right? And then all the different levers that you can pull, as you mentioned, and you were able to sort of navigate all of that, all while thinking about big world events and the things that are kind of plaguing society today, right? Then at some point you transitioned into the financial services industry, and in that process you kind of had further interactions with kind of women and how they're interacting with the financial services industry. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, an interesting experience. I ended up becoming the money expert for CBS TV in Los Angeles. And it was sort of my dream, right, when I was 15. And I was doing this alongside working in the financial industry full time. And I would go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, go live on the set, do something talking about, credit cards, investing in index funds, and those sorts of things. But a funny thing would happen, and that is that women who worked at the TV station would stop me on my way out, and they would ask me questions about their money, all sorts of things. My boyfriend wants to borrow money. Do I do that? I just got an inheritance. What do I do? And the internet at this point was just starting into being. And I started doing some research online, and I found that while women were, of course, making more money, moving up in the business world to some extent, they were not investing their money. They were not going to places like a Charles Schwab, and they were not learning and going to the financial news sites like a Yahoo Finance. And that sort of led me to say, wait a second, I think there's an opportunity here. And I think a lot of you may know Alexa von Trobel. She's an HBS graduate who did a very similar concept that followed what I started in Silicon Valley called Women's Financial Network. So long story short, created the first online financial company focused on women, helping them to both learn and take action in a way that sort of met their needs 24/7. Sold that company to Muriel Siebert, first woman with a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. It was phenomenal. I think a couple of the really interesting lessons out of that for everybody is when I had that idea, my boyfriend, fiance at the time, very savvy, very well educated, wonderful person, said, Jem, that's a really neat idea, but Charles Schwab has so much more money, they could do that idea, right? And it's
Hmm.
very true. But what I thought to myself is a couple things. A, they're not doing it. And B, more than ever today, large companies cannot move. Actually, maybe I think it's a little bit changing now with AI, but over the last 20 years, I would say they've not been able to move as quickly as startups. And you've really seen new ideas completely take over companies, right? So the message there is, I don't think just because a big company has resources means that you should hold back on your idea. And there's lots of things that you can put in place for that. So that's, I think that, and also being in Silicon Valley around a very male-dominated investment world really
Hmm.
opened my eyes. And that led me to my second or third book called The Millionaire Zone, where I really took a look at how are these people networking in places like Silicon Valley, the how is it happening? How do they harness their networks to get ahead? And what are women missing out on? And the couple sort of interesting takeaways from that is that women do not leverage their networks to the extent of men. They're more risk averse, and we've heard of that before. But overwhelmingly, the people who are more financially successful, $1 million or more in net worth, not including their home, are leveraging the people, places, and things around them to get to where they want to go. And a lot of times in our workplaces, or people who might be out of a job, or they're looking to do a deal or whatever, they're oftentimes looking out ahead, like, okay, how can I make this happen? When in fact, if you stop and think, well, who's around me in my sphere? Like the HBS alumni is a great example, right? A lot of people don't think about leveraging that network to get to where they want to go. So some really interesting findings that I think if women really harness their networks, and I hear so many times that they're so busy, they're so focused on their job and getting home with their kids. But I think it's so important, particularly when you're working, to do it more so that you set yourself up for success.
Right. That's a huge learning. And we'll talk more about your advice for those of us on the call a bit later. But I mean, you were there building Women's Financial Network. As you mentioned, it was digital, it was new. When you first began this organization, did you see yourself as an entrepreneur? Like how, with all the kind of self-doubt and self-talk, how did you put yourself in those shoes and say, like, yes, let's go ahead and do
Oh
it?
my gosh, the bad of me is that when I have a really what I think is a good idea, I kind of go for it. But I don't know that I saw myself as an entrepreneur more than I did a problem solver, which is kind
Mm,
of what we'll get to today. So when I see big problems and people talking about them for decades, it drives me crazy. And I want a solution. I want to move the needle so that people have opportunity and a better life and a better economy. Um, I think that the other sort of big lesson that I learned, and I think this is super important, and one of the biggest mistakes that I made to some extent throughout my various ventures is, not always putting in place the team before you launch something, right? I might have part of it in place. I might think I could fund it all myself. But the people who have built their wealth, whether it's an Oprah or Bill Gates, they all had somebody very close to them. You didn't see them in the media, but they were absolutely instrumental. And it was a partnership. And I think that's just so important. On the HBS network, I mean, the benefit that you all have is you have just so much talent around you, right? To do that and
mhm.
to bring an idea to life and to put things in place.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving right after sort of coming out of that experience, your whole career just took off. And let me share my screen here. I know you briefly flashed it up earlier,
Mm.
but you just went ahead to publish books, host TV programs, you built other organizations focused on financial literacy and tools. And so, what inspired you in 2017 to create Girls with Impact?
So I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and I was at the time working for Mercer. I think many of you know who Mercer is, major consulting firm along the lines of an EY and a PwC. And I was leading a research platform called When Women Thrive, Businesses Thrive. And I'm going to just show you a chart kind of related to it. And we were talking to top CEOs about what's happening to women in the pipeline. Why is it that women and men come in at equal levels that you see right here at the entry level, but the more you go up, the more you see them drop off? And I'm sure all of you know yourself many of those reasons, right? And a lot of it is corporate culture, et cetera. And I sort of had this aha because beyond our breakfast where we talked about this very slide, um, major leaders were again talking about the need to invest in women, from Coca-Cola CEO to Christine Lagarde. And I had been in Silicon Valley 20 years before, and I thought, I am still hearing the same thing. And so I sort of had this aha that, you know what, we need to like do something about this because I'm tired of talking about it, and it affects our lives, affects our financial independence and security, affects our daughters, it affects their potential to reach their full potential in the workplace, and we all want that. And the more I look at the data and the history, the more I see that, it's a world that has been driven by men, and I want women to have their same shot. I wanted to have that same opportunity. And so we built Girls with Impact to focus on leveling the playing field and creating equal opportunity, but by focusing on the next generation, our young people. And the reason for that is that dealing in the corporate world is really tough, but also we're kind of going to the root of the solution, right? pretty tough if you think about it to help women at 40 years old to think confidently, to retrain the way they are in the workplace. Much better payoff if we do it and start young. And so that's what we did with Girls with Impact. And it's been extraordinarily impactful. And as I talk about this, I want you all to keep in mind that I know you all have daughters, nieces, granddaughters. This is an opportunity for all of them, whether they're in the high school track or the early career track. So should I talk a little bit about that, Sarina, and kind of what we're doing?
Yeah, please go for it because yeah, really like when I saw what Girls with Impact was doing, it's something that even I wished I had growing up, right? Going through high school, going through college. So tell us a little bit more about
Yes.
what GWI does.
And I should tell you, by the way, that when we built the initial curriculum, we built it with some folks from HBS. So that's really important to know. So the mission is leveling the playing field. And how do we do that? We're focused on addressing the issues that have held women back. And those are confidence is still a big issue in the workplace and with our teens. It starts in the teenage, making sure they have the skills to succeed on day one and making sure that they have a network in place to provide support. We all know the power of networks. I saw it in Silicon Valley. It's extraordinary. We have trained about 20,000 young women now through our programs. I'll talk about those in a second. And we're now trying to scale that to the next level, 50,000. My goal with speaking to you is to have you a part of this because we can't do it without everybody caring about this. We'll talk at the end about some ways that you might want to be a part of it, small or larger, but it's a really important mission. When you think about the data out there that the World Economic Forum and other top leaders talk about when they say, what does it take for women to have equal opportunity? It is more women in government. You've all heard that. It's more women in business. That is a tricky one to fix, right? It's very tricky. And particularly when you think about the $200 billion in venture capital that's doled out every year, only 6% of it goes to female founders. That's like egregious. It's so egregious. So what we're doing is training these young women to have foundational skills in business and leadership, that confidence as well, and that network so that they can have a greater chance of reaching their potential. Many of them will go on to be entrepreneurs at some point. Our view is at this early stage, it's really too early, better for them to get workplace experience. So let me talk a little bit more about the programming. And as I go through this, some of this, it will be of interest to, your teens, your neighbors, what have you. In the high school space, we start in the high school space. Our signature program is the Business and Leadership Academy. This is the core one we built with folks from HBS, where we went through the curriculum. And here, young women are putting on an entrepreneurial lens and bringing an idea to life. In the process of being in a small class of 25 students from across the country in a Zoom class, but with a learning platform underneath that, these young women are learning concepts straight out of HBS. They go from idea to a business plan and venture pitch. They come out of it just seeing themselves completely differently, right? They see themselves now as a leader. And I'll talk in a moment about some of the outcomes. But here, in fact, this young woman right here got 3 full ride offers to college as a result of leveraging this academy experience. She went through it at about 15 years old. She's now at Johns Hopkins working on the venture that she started. It is a venture in the healthcare kind of tech space. It's a virtual reality solution to help children with autism. Killer idea. Full ride to college. She is now the youngest in the country getting her MBA. Unbelievable. So that's the academy. It's 10 weeks, and we run that a little bit like a business school. So every quarter we are recruiting young women. Every quarter we hold a national graduation. We just had one about a week ago. Then staying in the high school space, we have mentoring programs. This is where corporate or other volunteers can engage and mentor these young women. We have the curriculum built out. So let's say you wanted to mentor her. There are 2 opportunities. One is sort of a on-demand, almost like I need help in the next couple of days. we'll match them. And then the other is something that's a little bit more ongoing to help her with getting into college or landing her first internship or job. And then we are launching what I think is a really fabulous program. And there's a couple things that I want to say about this. This is our first kind of in-person after-school program led by two students at a high school. They will bring students together on a monthly basis and learn leadership skills and other aspects that are just so important that are not taught in school. So things like, how do I get a recommendation, right? Really, really important lesson. We are looking for a lead underwriter to scale this more broadly. And then in the college space, we also have the academy program, really powerful kind of enrichment, experiential learning. I want to mention that when a young woman goes through academy and she is in an interview for college or an internship, and she talks about having created a business plan and knowing what a value prop is and did a SWOT analysis. You guys all know this. It is a complete game changer for her, right? So we generally, all the money that we raise enables us to bring these programs generally to lower and moderate income communities, and we can talk about that later. But if anybody is a parent of means and you want your daughter to go through these, you can go online and register for those programs. The Career Accelerator program is a really important program that I feel really fills the gap in any college. That program, 10 sessions, how do I land a job and how do I be ready to excel on day one? How do I organize my day? How do I block and tackle? How do I follow up with my boss? How do I make friends? All of those things that are just simply not taught. And then the larger scheme of what we're doing is building this incredible network and making sure that these women have these kinds of skills. And I want to mention that this is super important is a lot of us think, oh, what we learn in college is going to drive our success in the workplace. That is not true. The data shows that 85% of job success stems from professional or soft skills or durable skills. There's now lots of language. It's these kinds of skills down here. It is not hard skills like math. So particularly for women to get them in their power, feeling confident, speaking with authority, those kinds of things, building a network and sponsors and advocates in the workplace are so important. So that's what we're trying to do with them. I know that was a lot, so sorry for all that.
Oh my gosh, no, not at all. And it's so important, the work that you do. And this really resonates with me personally. I feel like it is, you're right, it is exactly these things, the communication, the confidence. Even for me, going into HBS and speaking up in cases really, I was still going through that experience of learning all of these skills, right? And so to be able to learn it in high school, in college, and walk into the business world feeling prepared and equipped makes such a big difference for these young women.
Yeah.
How does,
curious.
yeah, go for it.
I'm so curious to know, like, of everybody on, and if you want to raise your hand, you can, but how many of you know somebody close to you in the 14 to 24 age bracket that you think would benefit from this? Because this is there for them. And when you think that we've trained 20,000 young women and we have this community, it's, hi, Marianne, that's great, a 27-year-old. It's so impactful and it's so important to help these young women now while they're early and starting out, because it's that foundation. I want to talk a little bit about how we're different from everything. And I want you to think about this both from a philanthropic standpoint, if any of you do support any organizations. There is a lot in the STEM and coding space. There's a lot in mentoring. There's a lot in college prep. We are about making sure young women are ready for day one in the office and building the largest community of young women that are ready for day one. Couple things that make us really different. We built this to scale. Most of our programming is delivered live online instructor led. So the instructors for our academy are pretty much the equivalent of an HBS adjunct, somebody with real business experience. They're in a class with students from across the country. Unbelievable experience, right? And so then they're part of this network as they move into the workplace that they can tap for whatever it is. I need a job. I'm looking to do a deal with somebody at Amazon. We are super outcomes driven. I talked about the quality of the instructors are amazing. And, when COVID hit, nothing really happened for us. And what it also means for those lower income young women who didn't have an opportunity to go to HBS or maybe did on a scholarship, but their parents can't afford these kinds of programs, it gives them an opportunity. It gives them an opportunity to have access to the same kind of programming that's going to give them a competitive advantage in the workplace. And even if somebody is living in rural parts of the country, they can still participate. Even if they are taking care of their little baby sister or whatever, or their mother is working and their father's working, they don't have somebody to drive them someplace, they can participate. And that's what we hear from them. So it's really, really impactful. Briefly on outcomes, we track a lot of outcomes, but some of the big ones, huge increase in their confidence, short and long term. Dads will say, gosh, my daughter now wants to be a CEO. She wanted to be a physical therapist. We see them kind of refining their career focus as a result, which I think is really important. Public speaking skills among the skills that are increasing. And then if they're in the high school space and they leverage it for college, it's a huge differentiator and a huge differentiator for the workplace as well. So this is Anika. I talked about her before, who went through the program, but I'll just take a pause there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all these things. I mean, it is really such a differentiated program. And again, something that so many young women can benefit from. Want to pivot a little bit to something that we've seen from the research space that came out this year. There was a really shocking study from MIT that came out earlier this year. And the research shows that women resist the leader label despite outperforming in key leadership areas. So were you surprised by this finding, and what is the effect of it, and how is that kind of contributing to this whole ecosystem that you just described?
Yeah, I was really shocked by that. And I've shared this with, some folks who are your peers, and they are shocked because they would expect that their confidence is not going to take a drop in the workplace, which the MIT survey shows that it does. Even just 2 years in, women's confidence takes a drop, even when the majority of women outperform men on 17 of 19 leadership capabilities, things like problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, inspiring people. It's unbelievable. And if women don't see themselves as a leader, they're not going to raise their hand, and they're not going to move up the ladder, right? So we have to tackle that. And I think that just underscores why GWI's work is just so important. It's a game changer, right? If you see a woman like that who doesn't see herself as a leader, and I just showed you women who come out of it and now want to be a CEO, right? They see themselves as a leader. So that's the important work that we're doing. So it all is to say that this is super important. It's been talked about for decades, right? Trying to move the needle on women having equal influence in the business world. We're doing it, but we also have just scratched the surface. And so it's really an opportunity and an ask and an invitation for all of you to be a part of it in some way, whether it's making GW a small part of your giving, or or bringing young women to be a part of this. So many ways that you can help.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's $12 trillion with the T, right? It's a huge
$12 trillion.
opportunity for us, for our companies, for the country. And so, all around, it's such an important cause. So I guess before we jump into Q&A, just we'll close with some advice for all of us on the call. This is obviously a brilliant group of female leaders across industries. So what can we do to move the needle?
Well, I would love you to be a part of it in some way, and I'm just going to show you a couple things. First off, it's worth noting, Sarina, maybe you just want to, well, I guess we'll come back to it. So as an individual, or if you work in companies, we partner with companies all the time. And you may not be working at a company, but you're somebody may, and we welcome those introductions. So for companies, we are a platform for them to impact the community, to engage their employees as mentors, to pass on their knowledge, to upskill their employees. We've heard all of that from companies, and you can see J&J here has been a longtime partner. And so generally companies will support us philanthropically in some way, and then we work with them. And also it's a huge talent pipeline that they can tap as they're looking to increase the number of women in the workplace. And we hear that over and over again. This picture down below has leaders from Amazon, Salesforce, Bristol-Myers Squibb. This is last year's leadership forum, which is coming up on October 8th. So every year, and I'm just going to stop my screen, Sarina, so that you can maybe share this year's leadership forum. This is a great breakfast, takes place at the Yale Club. Don't hold that against me. Right at Grand Central. It is really designed to talk about Gen Z and how businesses can harness Gen Z, given that we deal with Gen Z, right? So we have some incredible experts coming, including Amanda, but also top leaders from Bloomberg, the National Women's Soccer League, and Canva, talking about tools and strategies to harness Gen Z in the workplace. There's some challenges, but there's also some ways to really take advantage of it. So if you're in the area and you want to come, it's a great way to connect and come with a friend, come with colleagues. People have really enjoyed this event, even for their clients. So lots of companies will come and bring their clients. You know, I think just to share on the small scale, let me just kind of go back to a couple slides here. Introductions are super, super helpful. We talked about the leadership breakfast. If you want to mentor a student, it's a nice way to touch and feel what we do. We do have a regional board that we have built. We have a national board, we have a Connecticut board, and we're building out a New York regional board. And that really is not a big lift at all. It's really meant to help me and us engage with philanthropists or business leaders to get behind our cause. We're looking to scale this to 50,000, and we're looking to have CEOs and philanthropists and women who care about this behind this in some way. So I talked about us, and then there's a brief little form if you want to take a moment to. I think Sarina's going to share that to just tell us, but I welcome direct emails from you to say, hey, Jen, I'd love to be considered for your board for New York or elsewhere, or I'd love to make this part of my giving. Even a small $100 donation is so important because it tells us that you care about this. And it's a way of just also keeping you updated. So if you want to make a small donation, you can. And let me just kind of share a couple other ways that we engage with philanthropists that really will help us move forward. And I share this because it's a small world. I know you all know people, whether yourselves or others or family offices. People can underwrite an entire cohort of 25 young women going through the academy. They could underwrite a recruitment program in a region. They could help us on a larger scale, I don't know if I have it on here, but scale one of our programs. I'm just going to maybe show you a couple of them. Well, this is kind of relevant. We've taken this to the next level, but scale one of our programs like the She Leads Club program or the Career Accelerator program. Wonderful opportunities that are really impactful, can advance someone's legacy, obviously tax deductible, and can make a huge difference in leveling the playing field. So would really invite those conversations one-on-one. Love to have coffee in person. I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut, but I go to New York, always open to a Zoom.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And we'll send more information as a follow-up for those who are excited about getting involved. But for now, let's transition over to Q&A. I'm sure you guys have questions. We've also had some questions across, like emailed to us, and so happy to go through those, but wanted to open it to the folks on this call first. So feel free to just go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'll ask a question. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
My name is Hillary Joel. I'm outside Washington, D.C.
Oh.
Could you briefly say a little bit about getting into these programs, how selective it is, the admission, a selection process, and the costs or role of scholarship in making it, more equitable to folks?
Perfect question. So what we do is we've served a student in every single state. We focus our team's resources in select areas. I'll get to those in a second. But basically what we do, Hillary, is we bring it at zero cost into public systems in the lower to moderate income areas. And we do it at zero cost for a couple reasons. It allows us to work with schools, because if you're charging something, they won't. And it removes a barrier. We've tried a couple things aside from that, like a sliding scale. It just creates more of an issue. And we've decided as an organization, in order to scale and in hopes of raising more national funding, that the more we have in numbers, the better. We do not have a grade point average. We do not have a application. Again, our goal is the more students we impact, the better off we all are. And she basically will register just like she's registering for any other, like let's say you guys went to the YWCA, you like this class, swimming, there's a 4 p.m., a 6 p.m., etc. That's exactly how she's going to register. But she will have, through the schools that we work with, she will have a code so that when she registers at checkout, she will pay $0. And what this allows us to do is that if a private school parent or parent of means or parent in an area that we really have no support, let's say the private schools in Greenwich, okay, those moms love our programs. They'll go to our website and they'll see that the Academy and the Accelerator are $995. They will pay that fee, and that really just goes to the cause. And we've had great experience with that as well. So that's that program. The She Leads Club program is something that, I personally am trying to also partner in with private schools, because it's been really helpful from a funding standpoint to engage the parents of private schools. They care about this, they have capacity, particularly all girls. And so the She Leads Club is a great opportunity, and that's open to anybody. A donor could underwrite that at a particular school as well. But I think I've answered your question, right? I also want to say the DC, Maryland area. So a really good example. We are in Montgomery County schools there. We've served almost, oh, you're kidding. Okay, well,
and I'm part of a program in Montgomery County. So go ahead.
Oh, wow. Okay. We have an MOU with that district, and we have served 1,000 students, and we are looking for a funder. The reason we haven't gone there for funding yet is just a bandwidth issue with the team, a bandwidth issue. But that is the 6th largest district in the country and one of the poorest. And any introductions, we are now going to try to tackle that. Super helpful. The other regions where we kind of, are focused on, it's Connecticut, New York, Boston, Massachusetts, Los Angeles, and the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. We are also in areas like Texas, Atlanta, Minneapolis. But just from a funding standpoint, we can only go so far unless we have somebody who says, gosh, and this is one of the other opportunities, gosh, this is my hometown. I would love to scale GWI in this region. That's also a great opportunity.
Super helpful and love the answers.
Oh, good. Any
Jennifer,
other? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. Excuse me. You had mentioned, I think there was listed somebody who had wanted to be a physical therapist, and now she wants to be a CEO. How do you reach girls who may now be thinking, oh, I'm going to be a teacher or a nurse, which are wonderful professions, but entice them that business may be a good role for them? And I'm thinking of it even, a couple of young girls that I know who don't really have an interest, but they're really smart, and I'd love to see them get into this.
Well, that's so interesting because, there's one school in New York, and the advisor to students comes from it's a guy from the financial industry. And he had all these girls come in and they loved it. And he had this one he went to, and she said, business, I'm not interested in business. He's like, no, you got to do this. And she loved it. And so you'll see on some of the flyers when we're pushing it out, we'll use Innovation Academy instead of the word business, because they don't really know what that means. And we'll use leadership, right? So I think a lot of first off, I feel like almost every young woman is experiencing some challenge or something inside her. And I feel like we pull a lot of that out. So to give you a few examples, we had a girl in the early days who used to sit in the back of the classroom, and now and I'm just going to show you her for a second. She used to sit in the back of the classroom, and now right here, she got a full ride. She was in our pilot program, and now she's at BlackRock. Okay. Unbelievable, right? We have had a couple girls who had a stuttering issue. And at our graduation, which we conduct live online, sometimes we'll have an in-person version and then we'll do everybody by Zoom. The girls, I would go around the room and they said, "Oh, it helped me overcome my stuttering." I could not believe it, right? Or girls who feel like, you know what, I'm not pretty enough. I've heard that recently from a private school parent, they're not pretty enough. Everybody has some gift inside, and that's the potential that we want to unleash. And having the other thing that our graduates will say is there's very few spaces with like-minded young career young women. This is a space for them to do that. So one of the newer things that we've been doing now that we have a larger team is building out the opportunities for the alumni. And the alumni really just means they've gone through the academy. Generally, they can access any of our other programs. But now we do monthly breakout rooms where we'll have a youngish speaker come in and talk about something that's of interest to them. We're going to start doing meetups where they can come together in person in geographies so that they have that connectivity, right? But that's really, to be candid with you, why we sorely need the support. We train these young women at a fraction of any other training program. $1,000 is kind of what we ask for a supporter, a donor, to underwrite one girl. Once she's in, she has access to all those other programs that we talked about. So hopefully that helps. There's some videos, there's some great sizzle reels where these girls talked about, like, my confidence went through the roof. So maybe, Deborah, I think that sizzle reel is maybe worth sharing. There's a couple really good videos that we have.
Okay, that would be great because I'd love to share this with
Yeah.
a couple of young girls who I think really need it.
Yes. And again, if any of you, feel like, some people will say, "I'm super busy, I can't do anything." I don't need somebody on the regional board, but it's nice because it's kind of closer connectivity. But you may know somebody to introduce us to. You may want to come to the leadership forum and get a feel of what we do. We do our gala in Greenwich in end of February, and it's really fun and inspiring, and also great connectivity.
Cool. I also have a follow-up question, different one. Have you seen an impact in your fundraising now in the current environment that
That's a great one.
companies now can't be supporting? Because, I mean, we've seen it ourselves trying to get sponsors
Yes.
for some of our things that suddenly,
Yes.
they're
They
not
can't do
talking
anything
about it.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Harvard and some of these companies, um, because their names have such big brands, they're a little bit of a target, which they were. And so people have to be extra careful. I think that's what's also going on. For that reason, we had a major consulting firm, one of the big five, and they pulled back on a major grant, which for us is a huge 250,000 for
Wow.
that very reason. And I kind of understand it. And on the other hand, I think that there's a lot of people who, at all ages, young women care about this and older women care about this, maybe because they feel like, you know what, I was the nice wife who stood by my husband while he reached his potential. And there's some trade-offs that, of course, a lot of times we choose to make. But a lot of people really care about this. And so and Sarina's working with me to think about how to kind of really elevate that leveling the playing field, equal opportunity for women in business, and tapping into that. And I would love the HBS Women's Association to be a part of that as Sarina, maybe think about doing some other things. But yeah, it'd be different if we were in a level playing field, but we're not. That's the issue, Deborah, right? And the more I see
Right.
worse, you know, and the more I see how companies operate, my husband works in the financial industry. He's fabulous, but you know, and I come from it so closely at very high levels. And now I see, when I was in Silicon Valley, I thought it was a level playing field. I raised $5 million. I was meeting with some of the top VC guys, you know, because it was a gold rush moment. It is not a level playing field. It is very hard to raise money, very hard to break in. And I do believe more and more that because you don't see women on TV as much and you don't see them as role models, the mindset sinks in, and there's lots of research and data and a book on this, that it's true, like women are not quite the same as men, and it's baloney. And the data we pulled from I mean, there's just so much data. It's ridiculous. So now I'm on the other side. I think women, and I've had top men leaders tell me, I had a vice chairman of the world's largest distressed company, manages 200 billion plus, say women work harder, and they do. So I want them not just working harder, but get them up the ladder so that hopefully, you know, we have a better world, we have better
Yes.
policies, we are making sure that women's cancers are being researched the same level as men's, like, you know, yes, more women at the top is the goal.
Amen to that.
Agreed.
Ew,
Yes.
Nananya, I love that. Thank you. And I can't tell you how much that your support in whatever way really matters. It really matters. And, you know, again, I welcome an email. Well, that form is just an easy way for me to kind of see what your interest is. But we happy to share the email out. How many of you are in New York? Just curious, or I don't know if we have
I think most of us
oh, okay.
are, and some
Okay.
folks are on mute, but
Fernanda.
yeah.
Okay. And Fernanda, by the way, one of our graduates who speaks sometimes, I mean, this girl, so interesting. She is now at FIT in New York, Fashion Institute of Technology, but she was at a community college in New York, and she had this idea to build fabrics, textiles. And the professor at our community college said, a guy said, well, you need to build a business plan. She didn't know what a business plan, and he didn't direct her. So what did she do? She literally went online. How do I make what is a business plan? She literally found us. She developed this venture that is going, and she got a $10,000 scholarship. She's at FIT, and she's had an internship at Vineyard Vines. It's unbelievable. So it's
Amazing.
something really exciting.
That's
It
incredible.
is. So we do have a concentration, perhaps on this call, in New York because the club originated in New York and then we went national last year. But we do, from a membership standpoint, we have people not only all over the country, but actually globally, and who participate in a number of different events and ways. So, and I'm currently in Boston, but I go back and forth between here and San Francisco. So we've got a good group out there, very large group
Oh,
actually.
that's actually really, so, you know, it's interesting, Deb, because I haven't really, I have two board members from San Francisco because I worked with them years ago. And I have been toying with doing something, but just because of a bandwidth, we're like, you know what, we've got so much to fry in other areas. But if you thought there was interest, I would fly out and do something, just so you know. And usually it's really impactful. We, you know, just speaking to kind of some other ways that people have been super helpful. I've had parent bring 5 women together, and they ended up, 3 of them bought tables at our gala, and they brought great people there, hugely helpful. Somebody in the neighborhood who does a tea every year at her house, and the audience loves it because it's a little bit of this, it's a lot of substance and insights, and you know, so I would really welcome that. I just need somebody to help, you know, bring the folks to the table.
Okay. I will follow up
Okay.
with you. I won't be back there
Okay.
for a little bit, but I can follow up.
That's
with you.
great. Or Boston, by the way, because Sarina has ties there, and we do have a presence in Boston. So that's the other area that would be really great. So
Okay.
something to think of that.
Yeah.
Okay, for all you
Well, this
people on the
was
call.
really great. And we'll follow up with links, the sizzle that Jen was talking about. Any other I saw Gulumi just came on
Yeah.
video, so nothing. Okay.
Oh, I was just in appreciation. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, Golem, where are you from? What is here? Teeny bit of an accent. Where are you from?
Oh, yeah. I was born and raised in Istanbul.
Oh, wow. I just went there.
Oh,
Literally.
okay.
Beautiful, amazing, amazing, amazing.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
yeah. And
So
can I just add, like, do all of you, might you want to be supportive in some way? I hope something, small, however that is, would be really helpful. The other thing I can do, Sarina, is maybe send the link to, if you go on our website under programs, there's various programs. If you know a young woman in your life, those are year-round accessible, just so you know. But don't hesitate to email me if you need something in particular. Somebody who wants to start a She Leads club or whatever.
Is there an upper age that's beyond what you're trying to
24
help?
generally.
Okay, just
24.
checking.
Yeah. But we keep the 18 to 24 separate from the high schoolers, so they're not mixed in. Yeah.
Okay,
well,
And
great.
Hillary,
amazing.
I would love to know if you have any thoughts on Maryland, DC, because it's just, yeah.
You're on mute.
Serena, maybe you can share
Yeah.
Jennifer's email with me. You have mine or
Yeah,
whatever.
with everybody.
Yeah.
Happy to connect. Yeah,
Awesome.
offline.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. And we'll share materials. And the last thing I'll say is really don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to keep this conversation going. Jennifer is super accessible and wonderful to talk to, as you've seen. So, it's just such an important conversation, especially given everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
let's keep chatting and, hopefully this community continues to grow.
Yes.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
everybody for joining.
Yeah.
And thank you
Deborah,
so
Thank you
much, Jen.
so much.
Thank you so much, all of you, for taking time out. Not only do I appreciate it, but the next generation who benefits.
Yes.
Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
so much, Jennifer
Thank you.
and Sarina. Take care.
Bye.
Great job.
Be in touch. Bye-bye.